What's up guys, Perry from Rockville here, and today I'm going to show you how to set up your HTS820. So let's check out everything that comes included. So we have the subwoofer, which also acts as the main hub for our system with all of the controls, inputs and outputs on the back of the sub. It also comes with the center speaker to place in the center of our setup, along with 2 surround sound speakers and 2 front speakers. You also get some mounting hardware if you want to mount your speakers onto the wall in front or behind you. There's also an RCA cable and an RCA to 1/8 inch jack if you wanted to plug in a sound source like your phone, tablet, etc. It also comes with an antenna wire to plug in for your FM radio and a wireless remote so that you can control many of the functions from a distance. So the first thing we can do to set up our home theater system is set up our speakers. So we have the center speaker here that can go in the front of our TV or in the center of our setup. You also have 2 front speakers, a left and a right, that can go on the side of your TV or on the walls on each side of your TV. And there's also 2 surround sound speakers that can go behind you on the left and the right. You should see some stickers on the back of each speaker letting you know which one is which will help you when you're connecting your speakers to the hub, which is our subwoofer right here. So now let's talk about how we're gonna set up each speaker. So I have the center speaker right here, which for my setup today, I'm gonna place right in front of the TV on the top of our TV stand here. But this can go anywhere as long as it's in the center, so you can place it underneath your TV, whether it's hanging on a wall or if you have it in a media center like this one here. But you can place this speaker anywhere as long as it's in the center of your setup, so you can place it underneath your TV, whether you have the TV hanging on your wall. We have the mounting hardware so that you can mount the speaker right underneath it. If you have a media stand like this one here and there's enough room to place the speaker inside one of the shelves, you can do that also. And while we're on the topic of mounting our speakers, let's quickly go over how we would want to do that for our center speaker here. So in this Ziploc bag, you'll see a bunch of different plates and screws inside. So if we take a look at one of these plates, you'll see we have 2 tiny holes here. This is gonna line up to the back of our speakers. And then we have the big holes here. And this is what we're gonna use to hang the speakers onto our wall. In the case of our center speaker here, we're actually going to be using 2 of these plates. For this, I would recommend you take each plate and line it up so that the 2 tiny holes here are lined up right against the back of your center speaker, so that once they're attached, you can use these big holes here, and so this way you can hang up the speaker as if it's a painting that you want to place on your wall. So to do that, take 2 of these plates and line them up to the back of your center speaker. From there, you're gonna take 4 tiny screws so that you can drill these plates onto the back of your speakers. And once you have those plates attached, you're gonna take this Ziploc bag here, which comes with 6 long screws, and this is what we're gonna use so we can hang the speakers onto our wall. Since we attached 2 of these plates onto the back of our speaker, we're gonna take 2 of these screws. If it helps, you can measure the distance between each plate on the back of your speaker and draw them up to your wall so that you know the exact distance that you need to screw in these screws. So once you've done that, you can take each screw and screw them onto your wall. And after that, you should be able to take your speaker and mount it up to your wall. The same principle applies for the other speakers in your setup, but there is a difference there. That being that you want to take just 1 of these plates and 2 tiny screws. Then you can take 1 of your long screws, screw it into your wall, and now you should be able to mount your speaker onto your wall. Now when it comes to the subwoofer, which again is the general hub for our setup, we have a few different places where we can have it set. We can place it right next to the TV on either side, or you can place it right next to your couch so you can really feel the low end of everything you're watching or listening to. Now another thing is each of these speakers have these feet on the bottom, so if you didn't want to mount your speakers, you can place them down onto the sides of your TV, onto the TV stand if there's enough room, or you can place them onto any shelves that's in your room. Just be sure to follow the guideline of surround sound, so as long as you have your center speaker in the center, the front speakers in the front, and the surround speakers in the back, you'll be good to go. And the best part is each of our speakers has wire long enough so wherever you want to place your sub or speakers, you should be able to reach them easily and have everything connected as they should be. So once you have each of your speakers mounted or placed where you want them, we can then connect them to the back of your sub. On the back of the sub, you'll see the audio output section, which will inform us of where to connect each speaker. So we're gonna look at the labels on the back of our speakers and plug them into the respected outputs on the back of our sub. So for example, our center speaker here is labeled CEN for center, and we're gonna look for that same label on the output section here on the back of the sub. Then we're gonna take the cable at the end of our speaker and plug it into that output. And then you'll want to follow that same method to plug in the front left and right speakers and the surround left and right speakers. So I'm going to take these speakers off of the table now and place them where I want in my setup. So the front right speaker is going to plug into the front right output. The front left speaker is going to plug into the front left output. The surround right speaker is going to plug into the surround right output. And the surround left speaker is going to plug into the surround left output. If possible, we recommend setting your center speaker and your front left and front right speakers to ear level so that you're getting the best representation of sound. You'll also want to make sure that your front speakers are angled towards you wherever you're positioned. And you should place your surround sound speakers behind you, but if you can't, you can then set them up to the sides, again angled. And if you can, we also recommend that you place it 1 or 2 feet above listening level for that surround sound effect. We have this diagram here to show you the best position for these speakers for prime listening, but if you're restricted by the space that you're in or if you have any other limitations, just set these speakers up for whatever suits best for your space or setup. So I've got my speakers placed the way I want for my setup today, but I just got my sub here in the middle only because we're going to be going into the back and making adjustments for the demo purposes for today. And once we have everything all set up, we can turn on the system by flipping the power switch on the back of the sub. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the controls and inputs on the back of the subwoofer. Below the audio output section where we plug in our speakers, we have the DVD audio input section. We can use these to connect our DVD or Blu-ray player to the home theater setup. So in this section, we have the SR and SL, which is surround left and surround right input. We also have an input for the center speaker and the subwoofer. And then we have the inputs for the front left and front right speaker. So on the back of your DVD or Blu-ray player, you're gonna look for an audio output section that has the same labels and connect them to the labels on the back of your home theater setup. So for example, you're gonna connect the center output on the back of your Blu-ray or DVD player into the center input on the back of the HTS820, and repeat this process for the other outputs of your Blu-ray or DVD player with the other inputs on the back of your sub. Next to that, we have the sound source input section where we can connect any optical, HDMI, SD, or USB. So if you're looking to connect your TV or gaming system to the HTS820, you can use either the HDMI or optical input, and just make sure you have the matching outputs on either your TV or gaming setup. Next to that, we have the music playback section where if we're listening to music, we can pause or play our tracks, skip forward to the next track, or go back to a previous track. And below that, we have a switch to set our system either to 5.1 mode or 2.1 mode. So if you want to experience the full surround sound, you can switch this to the 5.1 mode. Or if you want just a regular stereo setup, you can switch this to the 2.1 setting. Next, we have the master volume knob to control the volume that's coming out of our sound system. We can also press this button to switch between the different input sources like our HDMI, optical, etc. And we can hold this button down to set our whole system into standby mode. What's also really cool is that we have these 2 1/4-inch inputs that we can use to connect a microphone to the sound system, which would make for a great karaoke setup. So when it comes to setting up our TV to our home theater system, we have a couple of different ways we can do this. If your TV has either an HDMI or optical output, you can use that to connect to the subwoofer with the HDMI and optical inputs. For the HDMI setup, you're going to want to look at the back of your TV and make sure that you have an audio output that's labeled as HDMI ARC, which stands for Audio Return Channel. If you have that, you can take an HDMI cable, plug one end into that HDMI ARC, then plug the other end into the HDMI input on the back of your subwoofer. The next thing you're going to want to do is go into the sound settings of your TV and switch the audio output to HDMI or HDMI ARC so that it knows to send the signal out from that HDMI ARC to your subwoofer. You can also go into the advanced or expert settings on the TV and switch the audio format to PCM for the best sound quality possible. Next thing we're going to want to do is switch the sound source on our home theater setup by going to the back of the subwoofer and looking for the master volume knob. To switch the sound source, you're actually going to press this button until you see the display change on the front of your subwoofer to ARC. And now if you play something on your TV, everything will come out of all of the speakers in your sound system. If your TV has an optical output, you can also use that for your setup. You just want to make sure that the optical output reads audio out optical so that it can be used for sound. From there, you're just going to take an optical cable, plug one end into that audio out optical. From there, you should be able to see the other end of that cable light up red, letting us know that the signal is running through the cable, and that way you can plug the other end into the optical input on the back of your sub. The next thing you'll want to do is go to the sound settings of your TV and switch the output to audio out optical. And again, you can go into the advanced or expert settings and switch the audio format to PCM. Next, you can use the volume knob on the back of your subwoofer and press it until the display on the front of your subwoofer reads optical. And now again, you should be able to hear everything from the TV coming out of your system. And whether you're using the HDMI or optical output, remember that you have the button on the back of your subwoofer for the 5.1 mode or the 2.1 mode. So if you're not hearing everything coming out of all of the speakers for surround sound, just make sure that you have it switched to the 5.1 mode first, or you have the option to set it to a standard stereo mode with the 2.1 setting. Another cool setup you can use with the HTS820 is by setting it up with your gaming console. Now for this setup, it would be best if your gaming console had both an HDMI and an optical port. We recommend using the HDMI to connect your gaming console to your TV, and then you would use the optical port to connect to your gaming console. So we would recommend you use the HDMI port to connect to your TV for visual, and then use the optical port to connect to your home theater setup. So to connect the gaming console to the home theater setup, you're just going to take an optical cable, plug one end into the back of your gaming console. On the other end of that cable, it will light up red, letting us know that the signal is coming through. So then you're going to take that other end and plug it into the optical input on the back of your subwoofer for the home theater setup. After that, you can change the source input on the back of your subwoofer by pressing on the master volume until the front display on your subwoofer reads optical. After that, you'll want to go into the sound settings of whichever console you're using. So if you're using your PS4 or PS5, Xbox, etc., you want to go into the settings there and go to the sound settings. Make sure to switch the audio output to optical, and we also recommend switching the audio format to PCM. After that, everything coming from your console should be coming out of your home theater setup. Another cool way to use your home theater setup is for karaoke, since there's two 1/4-inch microphone inputs on the back of the sub. So to show you how that works, I have my microphone right here, and then I have my female XLR to 1/4-inch cable, and it's important that you get this specific cable in order to connect it to your subwoofer. So I'm going to take the female XLR end and plug that into my microphone, and then I can plug the other end into either mic 1 or mic 2 on the back of my subwoofer, but for today I'm going to set it up to mic 1. Now from here, we're going to want to raise the volume for the microphone, which we can do with the wireless remote that comes included. Just keep in mind, in order to use the remote, that you need a pair of AAA batteries to plug into the back. On the bottom, you'll see a mic plus and a mic minus button, and this is what we're going to use to adjust the volume for our microphone. So whenever I want to raise it, I'm going to press the mic plus button and raise it to the desired volume. And now if I turn on my microphone, check 1, 2, you'll hear my voice coming through the home theater setup. What's also really cool is that we can put some echo on our voice with these echo buttons on the bottom. So if I wanted to give my voice some extra flair, I'm gonna press echo plus, check 1, 2, check, check, and then you can start to hear the echo coming through. Hello, hello. Very cool. And this is gonna work also for the second microphone if we have that plugged in. So if you wanna set up that second microphone, you're just gonna follow the same exact steps, except you're gonna plug it into mic 2 on the back of the sub. So after we have our microphone all set up, you wanna just double check and make sure that your TV is properly connected to the subwoofer. Again, you can use the HDMI or optical input on the back of this sub as long as the HDMI or optical output on the back of your TV is meant for audio. Also double check the sound settings of your TV and make sure that it's set to the right output. So if you're using the HDMI ARC, make sure it's set to that. Or if you're using the audio out optical, make sure it's set to that. And lastly, make sure that you have the appropriate input source set up on the subwoofer. Again, you can use the master volume and click it until you get to the sound source that you want to use. So if you're using the HDMI, make sure to click it until the front display reads ARC, or if you're using the optical, make sure to click it until it reads optical. After that, you can use the volume knob to adjust the volume of the music coming through. You can also use the wireless remote. Then you can grab your mic, make sure that the volume is set the way you want it, again with the wireless remote. And then don't forget, you can also use the echo buttons here to give your voice an echo effect for some extra flair while you're singing some karaoke. And the best part is if we're using our smart TV like this one here with our setup, then you can go into the YouTube app and search for any karaoke version of a song. So this way we have the lyrics displayed just like this on our screen while we have some killer audio coming through the system. Hey now, you're an all-star, get your game on, go play. Hey now, you're a rock star, get the show on, get paid. All that glitters is gold, only shooting stars break the mold. Woo! Now on top of using the inputs on the back of the subwoofer, another way we can play some music through the system is by pairing a Bluetooth device. So to do that, we're gonna switch the input source of our system by going to the master volume knob and clicking on it until the display on the front of the sub reads Bluetooth. You'll also hear that sound letting us know that it's set to Bluetooth mode and looking for a device to pair to, like our smartphone or tablet. So from here, I can go into the Bluetooth settings of my phone or tablet and search for the device that reads HTS820 and click on it to pair. And then you'll hear that sound letting us know our devices are connected. Keep in mind you'll want to adjust the volume of the music with the volume notches on your phone. You can also use the volume knob on the back of your sub, or you can use the volume button on your remote. And now anything I play on my phone will also play throughout the system, so let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. Nice. Sounds great too. Wow. Ooh. Nice. Now another thing to keep in mind is that you can control many of the features for your home theater setup by using the included remote here. So let's break down what everything does here on the remote. So on the top, we have this power button here, and this won't turn off the system, but it will set it to a standby mode. So if I turn it off, you'll see that the volume goes all the way down and it's set to standby mode. And then as we turn it back on, you'll see the volume coming back up. Our Bluetooth device has reconnected just like that. And now we can use the system again. Next to that, we have the input button to switch the sound source for our system. So let's say we have multiple different items plugged into the different inputs on the back of the sub, and we want to hear the HDMI source. we're gonna click this input button until the display on the front of our subwoofer reads ARC. We also have a mute button to mute the whole system. Underneath we have the save button to save radio stations if we're using the FM radio. Next we have the sleep buttons here, and we can use this to set up a time for our system to go to sleep if there's no music playing through. So for example, if I set this to 10, then after 10 minutes, the whole system will go into standby mode so we can save some power. Next, we have the 5.1 and the 2.1 switch to switch our system between the 5.1 surround sound mode or the 2.1 stereo mode. Next, we have some music playback buttons here. So we have the tune plus and tune minus to switch to different radio stations with the FM radio. We have the skip forward and previous buttons here, and these can also be used to switch between different channels. We also have the pause and play button to pause or play our music if we're using a USB, SD, or Bluetooth device. And we can also use this as the auto button to automatically switch to an FM radio station if we're using the FM radio. Next, we have independent volume control for each speaker in our surround sound, which is really cool. So for example, we have the FR, minus, and plus. So if we felt like the front right speaker was a bit too loud, we can just use these to adjust the volume for that speaker alone. Same thing goes for the front left plus and minus. So if we want to adjust that speaker, we can do that. We also have the same controls for our center speaker right here in the middle. And we have the same control for our subwoofer right here. On the right, we have the overall volume button to control the overall volume for our system. And underneath, we have the volume control for the surround sound right and the surround sound left speaker. We also have the number pad here, so we can go to a specific track on our USB drive. And this can also be used to go to our favorited stations for our FM radio. We have a repeat and a reset button. Next, we have the microphone volume buttons, which we can use to adjust the volume of our microphone if we have that plugged in. And then we can also give our microphones an echo effect by using these echo buttons over here. Now, if we don't have a microphone plugged in, we can use the echo button to adjust the brightness of our LED display. So check this out. If I pressed echo minus, or brightness minus in this case, you'll see that the display is a little less bright. And then we can also use the microphone volumes to switch between different EQ presets. Again, you can only use these controls for the brightness of the LED or the EQ if you don't have any microphones plugged in. So hopefully this showed you guys how easy it is to set up your HTS820. But of course, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to reach out to our customer support team through phone or email. As always, I'm Perry from Rockville, and we'll see you guys next time.